Station Prometheus wasn't the worst place in the galaxy to end up, but it was close. The massive orbital facility hung in the darkness of space like a rusted crown, home to 40 different alien species who'd somehow agreed not to kill each other. Well, not officially anyway. The station had rules, laws written in a dozen languages and posted on every corridor wall. But everyone who lived there knew the real law, the one that mattered. The strong took what they wanted, and the weak learned to survive on scraps. Kira had learned that lesson young. She worked in Section C7, down in the lower levels where the air tasted like metal and recycled sweat. The waste recycling sector. It was the kind of job nobody wanted, the kind of work that marked you as bottom tier the moment you clocked in. But Kira didn't complain. Complaining required energy, and energy required water, and water was something she didn't have much of these days. Her people, the Villani, were easy to spot in a crowd. Their skin had this crystalline quality, like someone had carved them from living gemstone. When properly hydrated, a Villani's skin would shimmer and glow, catching light and throwing it back in soft waves of color. It was beautiful, or so Kira had been told. She couldn't remember the last time her skin had done that. Now it just looked dull and gray, cracked in places like old pottery left too long in the sun. The cracks hurt. Not like a cut or a burn, but a deep ache that radiated from her skin into her bones. Every movement reminded her that her body was slowly breaking down, cell by cell, because she wasn't getting the water her species needed to survive. She tried the proper channels at first. Filed complaints with station administration. Pointed out that the water rations for Section C7 didn't match what the regulations said they should be. The administrator, some insectoid alien with too many eyes and not enough interest, had pulled up the distribution logs and showed her that everything was fine. The water was being delivered. If she wasn't getting it, well, that was an internal sector issue. Take it up with her supervisors. Her supervisors were the problem. Drax and his two friends controlled Section C7 like it was their personal kingdom. They were Korthans, built like walking mountains with gray skin thick enough to stop a blade. Korthans were respected on Prometheus. They worked security, enforcement, the kind of jobs that required muscle and a willingness to hurt people. Nobody messed with Korthans. And Korthans didn't waste respect on species like the Villani. The water came to Section C7 every morning in sealed containers. Drax would sign for it, check it off the official logs, and then distribute it. Or not distribute it. He decided who got water and who didn't. He decided who'd earned their ration and who needed to beg for it. Kira had stopped earning her rations 3 weeks ago. She wasn't sure what she'd done to lose Drax's favor. Maybe she'd looked at him wrong. Maybe she'd failed to show enough fear when he walked past. Maybe he was just bored and needed entertainment. The reason didn't matter anymore. Now she begged. Every day at the end of her shift, she had to kneel in the commons area and ask. Not in the quiet corner of the sector where only a few workers would see. No, Drax insisted on the main commons, where hundreds of aliens passed through on their way to somewhere more important. He said it was about teaching her humility. About understanding her place in the station's natural order. Today was no different. Kira's shift ended at 1800 hours. She cleaned her workstation, logged out of the system, and walked the long corridor to the commons with her legs feeling like they were made of stone. Every step took effort. Her throat was so dry she could barely swallow. The cracks in her skin had started bleeding that morning, thin lines of fluid that dried into crystals on her arms. The commons was busy. Shift change meant workers from all sectors crossing paths, grabbing food from vendors, checking messages, living their lives. Kira found her usual spot near the central intersection where foot traffic was heaviest. She sank to her knees, feeling her joints protest, and waited. Drax made her wait. He always did. Sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 30. Part of the game. She'd see him across the commons, laughing with his friends, drinking from his own water container, taking his time. Making sure she knew that her thirst, her pain, her dignity, none of it mattered on his schedule. Today he made her wait 20 minutes. Long enough that her vision started to blur at the edges. Long enough that she seriously wondered if she'd pass out right there on the floor and whether anyone would bother stepping around her body. Finally, Drax and his companions walked over. They stood above her, blocking out the harsh station lights, their shadows falling across her like a judgment. Well? Drax's voice was deep and rough, like grinding stone. What do you want? Kira's voice came out as a whisper. Water. Please. Louder. Can't hear you. She tried again, forcing sound through her damaged throat. Please. I need water. See, that's better. But I don't know. You don't sound like you really need it. Drax pulled a water container from his belt, one of the large ones meant for distribution. He held it just out of her reach, shaking it so she could hear the liquid sloshing inside. Maybe you should convince me. Kira knew this part too. Please, I'm begging you. I need water to survive. Please. Drax tilted his head, pretending to consider. Then he unscrewed the cap and slowly, carefully, poured the water onto the metal floor in front of her. It splashed and pooled, running away toward the drainage grates, wasted. A full ration gone. His companions laughed. Not cruel laughter exactly, just casual amusement. Like watching something mildly entertaining on a screen. Kira stared at the water disappearing into the drains. She felt something break inside her, something that had been bending for weeks. Not her will to live, that was already broken. Something else. Maybe hope. Maybe the last small belief that things could ever be different. The commons flowed around them like a river around rocks. Hundreds of aliens passing by and not one stopped. Not one looked. This was normal. This was how things worked on Prometheus. The weak suffered, and everyone else pretended not to notice because getting involved meant becoming a target yourself. Kira's lips moved, trying to form words, but no sound came out anymore. Her throat had finally given up. She slumped forward, hands pressed against the cold floor, staring at the damp spots where the water had been. This was just another day. Tomorrow would be the same. And the day after. Until her body finally stopped working and she became just another station statistic, another lower caste worker who didn't survive their contract. Then someone's footsteps stopped. Not slowed down or hesitated. Stopped completely. Kira didn't look up. Looking up required hope and she had none left. But somewhere above her, a new voice spoke. Young male, uncertain. Speaking the common station language with an accent she didn't recognize. What the hell is going on here? Tyler had been on Station Prometheus for exactly 4 days, and he'd already decided that the place was designed by someone who hated happiness. The corridors were too narrow, the lights were too bright, and everything smelled like industrial cleaner mixed with something he couldn't quite identify. Something alien and slightly unsettling. But the worst part wasn't the station itself. It was the people. Or rather, the aliens. And the way they treated each other. He'd noticed it his first day. The casual cruelty that everyone just accepted as normal. The way certain species walked with their heads high while others pressed themselves against the walls to let them pass. The unspoken hierarchy that nobody had bothered to explain to him during his 3 weeks of orientation training back on Earth. His supervisor, a guy named Derek from Chicago, had pulled him aside on day 2 with some advice. Listen, kid. You're new to this whole galactic community thing. We all are. Humans have only been out here for 5 years? We're small fish in a very big, very dangerous pond. So here's the rule. Keep your head down, do your work, and don't get involved in station politics. Don't take sides. Don't ask questions. Just survive your contract and go home. Tyler had nodded and agreed because Derek was his boss and seemed to know what he was talking about. But Tyler had never been great at following rules, especially rules that involved ignoring people who needed help. His mom used to say he had a hero complex. His dad called it a stubborn streak. His little sister just said he was stupid but in a good way. Whatever it was, it meant that when Tyler saw something wrong, he couldn't just walk past and pretend it wasn't happening. Which was why, at 18:20 hours on his 4th day, walking through the commons area on his way back to his quarters, he stopped dead in his tracks. A girl was kneeling on the floor. At least, Tyler thought it was a girl. She was humanoid enough, same basic shape, but her skin looked like cracked glass. Gray and dull, with thin lines running through it that might have been veins or might have been fractures. She was thin, too thin, and shaking. Standing over her were 3 of the biggest aliens Tyler had seen on the station. They looked like someone had carved people out of stone and then decided to make them angry. One of them was holding a water container, and as Tyler watched, he poured it onto the floor while his friends laughed. The girl just knelt there, staring at the water running away into the drains. Not crying, not protesting. Just existing in a moment of pure, quiet defeat. The commons was packed with aliens going about their business. Hundreds of them. And every single one was pretending this wasn't happening. They walked around the scene like it was invisible, like this girl and her suffering didn't exist. Tyler felt something hot and angry flare up in his chest. Derek's voice echoed in his head, warning him to stay out of it. His training officer's lectures about respecting alien cultures and not imposing human values on other species. All the very sensible, very reasonable advice about being a good representative of humanity in the galactic community. He ignored all of it. What the hell is going on here? The words came out before Tyler could stop them, loud enough that several nearby aliens turned to look. The 3 stone-colored aliens turned too, and up close they were even more intimidating. The one holding the water container had to be 7 feet tall, with arms thick as tree trunks and eyes that looked at Tyler like he was an insect that had just spoken. Human. The alien's voice was deep and grinding, like 2 rocks scraping together. This doesn't concern you. Move along. Tyler's heart was hammering so hard he could hear it in his ears, but he stepped closer instead of backing away. Looks like it concerns me now. Why are you pouring water on the floor while she's clearly dying of thirst? The alien's expression shifted into something that might have been amusement. You've been on this station, what, a week? And you think you understand how things work here? I understand bullying when I see it. That's pretty universal. One of the other aliens laughed, a harsh barking sound. Bullying. The human thinks we're bullies, Drax. So the big one was named Drax. Great. Tyler had just picked a fight with someone who looked like they could snap him in half without trying. Drax took a step forward and Tyler had to tilt his head back to maintain eye contact. This is station business. Sector management. The Villani gets her water when she earns it. That's how things work in my section. Your section? Tyler glanced at the girl, who was looking up at him now with wide eyes that held no hope, only confusion and fear. Her skin really was cracked, he could see now. Actual physical cracks, like someone had dropped a ceramic figure and it was about to shatter. She works for you? She works in waste recycling. I manage distribution in Section C7. Everything by the book. Tyler unclipped his personal water canister from his belt. It was standard issue for human workers, a liter of clean water that got refilled automatically at his quarters every day. He drunk maybe a quarter of it. Then you won't mind if I share mine, since it's not your water to manage. He knelt down next to the girl, trying not to notice how badly she was shaking or how the crowd of onlookers had grown larger. Hey, it's okay. Here. He held out the canister. The girl stared at it like it was a hallucination. Her hand started to reach for it, then stopped, then reached again. I cannot. Her voice was barely a whisper, rough and broken. Yes, you can. Take it. Please. Something in Tyler's tone must have gotten through because her cracked fingers wrapped around the canister. She brought it to her lips and drank, and Tyler watched as the water seemed to work magic on her skin. The gray started to shift toward blue. The cracks didn't disappear, but they looked less severe, less like she was about to fall apart. Human. Drax's voice cracked like a whip. Do you have any idea what you just did? Tyler stood up slowly, positioning himself between Drax and the girl who was still drinking from his canister. His training had covered hand-to-hand combat, but that was against humans. He had no idea if his moves would even work on someone built like Drax. I gave someone a drink of water. Where I come from, that's called basic human decency. Where you come from doesn't matter here. This station has an order. Hierarchies. Rules that keep everything functioning. You can't just. Rules? Tyler pulled out his data pad, the one they'd issued him with all the station protocols and regulations downloaded. He'd spent his first 3 nights reading through them because he was bad at sleeping in new places. You mean like Station Regulation 7.3, which states that every registered worker is entitled to a minimum daily water ration based on their species' biological requirements. Or maybe Regulation 7.4, which says that water distribution must be logged and verified by station administration. Drax's expression darkened. Those regulations are followed. The water is delivered to your section. But is it being distributed according to species requirements? Tyler gestured at the girl. Because she looks pretty dehydrated to me. How long has it been since she got her full ration? A new voice cut through the tension. What's the disturbance here? The crowd parted for a station security officer, some kind of insectoid alien with too many legs and a uniform that marked him as official. He looked annoyed at having to deal with this, his mandibles clicking in irritation. Drax spoke first. This human is interfering with internal sector management. I'm reporting a potential violation of water distribution protocols, Tyler said quickly. Section C7. I'd like to request a review of the distribution logs for the past month. The officer's antennae twitched. You're filing a formal complaint? Yes, sir. More clicking. The officer pulled out his own datapad and started scanning through records. The silence stretched out, broken only by the sound of the girl drinking water and the whisper of hundreds of aliens watching to see what would happen when a human challenged a Korthan. Finally, the officer looked up. The logs show irregularities. Water allocated to Section C7 significantly exceeds water distributed according to registered worker requirements. Tyler felt a surge of victory. So there is a violation. The matter will be investigated. Drax, you'll receive a formal warning. Ensure proper distribution procedures are followed going forward. The officer's tone made it clear this was the end of the discussion. Everyone disperse. Now. The crowd began to break up slowly, reluctantly, like people leaving a show before the finale. Drax leaned close to Tyler, his voice low and dangerous. You have no idea what you just started, human. No idea at all. Then he and his companions walked away, and Tyler was left standing next to a girl with crystalline skin who was staring at him like he'd just grown a second head. Tyler's hands were shaking. Not from fear, though there was plenty of that sloshing around in his system. They were shaking from adrenaline, from the crash that came after doing something incredibly stupid and somehow surviving it. He stood there in the commons area, watching Drax and his friends disappear into the crowd, and realized he'd just made enemies on his 4th day at a job he was contracted to do for 3 years. The girl was still kneeling on the floor, holding his water canister like it was the most precious thing in the universe. Up close, Tyler could see that her skin wasn't just cracked. There were thin lines of crystallized fluid along the fractures, like her body was literally leaking and drying out. It looked painful. It looked like dying in slow motion. Can you stand? Tyler asked, offering his hand. She looked at his hand for a long moment, then at his face, then back at his hand. Like she was trying to solve a complex equation. Finally she took it. Her fingers were cold and rough, like touching stone that had been left outside in winter. Tyler pulled gently and she rose on unsteady legs. Thank you, she whispered. Her voice was still rough, damaged from thirst, but it sounded more human now. More alive. I am Kira. Tyler. Nice to meet you, though I wish it was under better circumstances. He glanced around the commons. Most of the crowd had dispersed, but there were still aliens watching them with open curiosity. Listen, you should get some more water. There's a public hydration station around here somewhere, right? Kira nodded slowly. Corridor B. But what? I have never used it. It is for higher castes. For species that matter. Tyler felt that anger flare up again, hot and sharp in his chest. That's garbage. Come on, I'll walk you there. They made their way through the corridors, Kira moving slowly and Tyler matching her pace. Other aliens gave them a wide berth, which Tyler was starting to understand was less about politeness and more about not wanting to be associated with whatever social violation they were committing. The public hydration station was a small alcove off the main corridor, equipped with automated dispensers and benches. It was clean and well-maintained, which made sense. The station couldn't afford to have contaminated water, not with 40 different species living here. But it was also completely empty, despite dozens of aliens passing by every minute. Okay, so you just scan your work badge here, Tyler said, pointing to the reader. The system checks your species requirements and dispenses the right amount. It's all automated. Kira stared at the machine like it might explode. I cannot. Why not? You're registered, right? You have a work badge. Yes, but... She trailed off, struggling to find words. If Drax discovers I use station resources without permission, he will make things worse. Much worse. Tyler took a breath, trying to keep his frustration in check. Not frustration with her, but with this entire messed up system. Kira, listen to me. This isn't his resource. It's station property. You have every right to use it. That security officer just confirmed there were violations in your section. Drax got an official warning. He can't punish you for following the rules. You do not understand how things work here. Then explain it to me. Kira sank onto one of the benches, still clutching Tyler's water canister. On Prometheus, there are rules written in computer systems and rules written in blood. The computer rules say I am entitled to water. The blood rules say I am Villani, and Villani are beneath Korthans, and Korthans decide what I deserve. If I challenge the blood rules by using this station, Drax will find a way to punish me that does not show up in computer logs. Tyler sat next to her, processing this. Back on Earth, he'd learned about systemic oppression in school. He'd read about it, written essays about it, thought he understood it. But understanding something intellectually and seeing it play out in front of you were two completely different things. So what happens now? He asked. You just go back to begging every day until your body gives out? I survive as long as I can. That is all anyone can do. No. Tyler shook his head. No, that's not all you can do. You can fight back. You can report him, use the proper channels, file complaints until someone has to listen. Kira laughed, but it was a sad, hollow sound. I have filed complaints. Many complaints. They check the logs, see that water is delivered to Section C7, and close the case. What happens inside the section is internal management. No one cares about internal management. That security officer cared enough to issue a warning. A warning. Not a punishment. Not a transfer. Not even a reduction in privileges. Just words that will fade from the official record in 30 days. Kira looked at him with those strange crystalline eyes. You meant well, Tyler. You tried to help and I am grateful. But you have made things dangerous for yourself and changed nothing for me. Tyler wanted to argue, but Derek chose that moment to appear at the alcove entrance. His boss looked stressed, his face red and his hair sticking up like he'd been running his hands through it. Tyler. A word. Now. Tyler stood reluctantly. I'll be right back, okay? Just wait here. He followed Derek a short distance down the corridor, out of Kira's earshot. Derek spun on him immediately. What the hell were you thinking? I told you to keep your head down. 4 days, Tyler. You've been here 4 days and you're already filing formal complaints against a Corthan sector supervisor. He was torturing her, Derek. Pouring water on the floor while she was dying of thirst. And that's tragic, it really is, but it's not your problem. We're engineers. We fix power systems and life support. We don't fix the station's social structure. Someone has to. Derek closed his eyes and took a deep breath, clearly counting to 10. Listen to me very carefully. Drax has friends. Lots of friends. Corthans stick together and they don't forget when someone makes them look bad in public. You just humiliated him in front of half the station. Good. Maybe he'll think twice before. He won't think twice. He'll think about revenge. And station security won't protect you when accidents start happening. Equipment malfunctions. Airlock errors. Falls from high places. This station has a dozen ways to kill someone and make it look like bad luck. Tyler felt cold. You're saying he's going to try to kill me? I'm saying you need to watch your back. And maybe apologize. Make this go away before it gets worse. Apologize? For what? Giving someone water? For interfering? For embarrassing him? For whatever it takes to survive your contract. Derek's voice softened slightly. Look, I get it. You're young, you've got principles, you want to make a difference. But this isn't Earth. The rules are different out here. The galactic community isn't some peaceful federation like in the movies. It's rough and brutal, and humans are still trying to figure out where we fit. We can't afford to make enemies. Tyler looked back toward the alcove where Kira was waiting. He could see her through the doorway, sitting on the bench with his water canister, her cracked skin slowly regaining some color. She looked so small and broken and alone. I can't just walk away, Tyler said quietly. You have to. For your own safety. No, I really can't. My dad taught me something when I was a kid. He said that the world is full of people who walk past suffering because it's easier than getting involved. He said that if everyone just keeps walking, nothing ever changes. Someone has to stop. Derek ran his hand through his hair again. Your dad didn't live on a space station controlled by aliens who see compassion as weakness. Maybe that's exactly why someone needs to stop walking. They stood in silence for a moment. Finally, Derek sighed in defeat. Fine. Do what you need to do. But don't say I didn't warn you. And Tyler? Watch your back. Seriously. Check your equipment before every shift. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't trust anyone you don't know. I will. Derek walked away shaking his head and Tyler returned to the alcove. Kira was right where he'd left her, looking even smaller than before. Here's what we're going to do, Tyler said, his voice more confident than he felt. You're going to scan your badge and get your water ration. Your full ration, the amount you're entitled to by station law. And then you're going to do it again tomorrow and the day after that. I work in Engineering Bay 7. If Drax or anyone else gives you trouble, you come find me immediately. Tyler, this is not wise. Probably not. But it's right. And sometimes that's more important. Tyler had expected consequences. He'd braced himself for confrontation, for threats, maybe even for violence. What he hadn't expected was what actually happened over the next 3 weeks. Nothing. Well, not nothing exactly. But Drax didn't come after him. There were no equipment malfunctions, no suspicious accidents, no late-night visits from angry Corthans. Tyler checked his tools obsessively before every shift like Derek had warned him to, tested every system twice, and kept his head on a swivel in the corridors. But the retaliation he'd been preparing for never came. Instead, something else happened. Something smaller and stranger and completely unexpected. It started on day 6. Tyler was running diagnostics on a power relay in Corridor D when he noticed an alien watching him from a distance. The alien was humanoid but covered in short gray fur, with large eyes that reminded Tyler of a bush baby. She stood there for almost 10 minutes just watching before finally shuffling closer. You are the human who helped the Villani, she said. Not a question, a statement. Yeah. I'm Tyler. I am Nessa. I work in food processing level 3. She glanced around nervously, like she was checking for witnesses. My supervisor takes half my meal credits each week. Says it is a processing fee. Is this allowed? Tyler blinked. I don't think so. Have you checked the labor regulations? I cannot read the station language well. My species was only recently admitted to the station program. Tyler pulled out his datapad. Okay, let's look it up together. They spent 20 minutes going through the regulations. Sure enough, there was no such thing as a processing fee. Supervisors couldn't take meal credits from workers. It was explicitly prohibited. Nessa's large eyes got even larger. This is written? In the official rules? Right here. See. Section 12, subsection 4. And if I show this to my supervisor? Then legally they have to stop. And if they don't, you can file a complaint. Tyler hesitated. Though I should warn you, complaints don't always work the way they're supposed to. But they might work? They might. Nessa left with a copy of the regulation on her own datapad, walking a little straighter than when she'd arrived. Tyler watched her go and felt a small spark of something that might have been hope. The next day, 2 more aliens approached him. Then for the day after that. Word was spreading through the lower levels of the station, passed along in whispers between workers who'd given up on the idea that things could ever change. There was a human in Engineering Bay 7 who knew the regulations, who would actually look them up and explain them, who treated lower caste workers like they mattered. Tyler found himself spending his lunch breaks in impromptu legal consultations, scrolling through station codes and labor laws with aliens whose names he struggled to pronounce. He couldn't solve every problem. Most of the time, the regulations had loopholes big enough to fly a ship through. But sometimes, just knowing what the rules actually said was enough to give people leverage they hadn't had before. Kira came to see him every few days. She was using the public hydration station now, getting her full water ration, and the change was remarkable. Her skin had gone from dull gray to a soft, luminescent blue. The cracks were healing, leaving behind faint lines like old scars. She moved more easily, spoke more clearly, existed more fully in the world. She also brought him gifts. Small things she'd found in the recycling sector. A working data chip that just needed cleaning. A piece of decorative metal that humans might find pretty. A salvage tool that was actually better than the standard issue one in Tyler's kit. You don't have to keep bringing me stuff, Tyler told her one evening when she appeared at his workstation with what looked like a vintage circuit board. In my culture, a debt of life must be honored, Kira said firmly. You saved me. These gifts are small, but they are what I have. You don't owe me anything. I just gave you water. You gave me more than water, Tyler. You gave me proof that I deserved to live. Her crystalline eyes caught the corridor lights, throwing little rainbow patterns on the walls. For years I believed what they told me. That I was lower caste. That I deserved less. That my suffering was the natural order of things. You showed me that was a lie. Tyler felt uncomfortable with that level of gratitude. I just read some regulations. No. You saw me as a person. On this station that is revolutionary. After she left, Derek stopped by the workstation. His boss had been keeping his distance since their argument, but now he pulled up a crate and sat down with a tired sigh. You've started something, you know that? Derek said. What do you mean? The lower-level workers. They're talking. Sharing information. Some of them are actually filing complaints now, citing specific regulations. Station administration is not happy about the increased paperwork. Good. Maybe they'll actually enforce their own rules. Maybe. Or maybe they'll crack down harder to make the problem go away. Derek pulled out his own datapad and showed Tyler a message. This came through official channels today. A note from station security asking engineering to remind all human workers about the importance of non-interference in cultural matters. Tyler felt his stomach drop. They're going to fire me? No. Not yet. But they're watching. And here's the thing. You're not the only human who's been helping lower caste workers. Johnson in maintenance helped a Tilbury file a safety complaint. Rodriguez in medical looked up regulations for a patient who was being denied treatment. It's spreading. Whatever you started, other humans are picking it up. Is that bad? Derek was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Part of me says yes, that we're making ourselves targets, that we should keep our heads down like I originally told you. But another part. He trailed off, staring at his datapad. I've been on this station for 2 years, Tyler. 2 years of watching people suffer and telling myself it wasn't my problem. that I was just here to do a job and go home. And you show up and in 3 weeks you've done more good than I've done in all that time. You're not mad. I'm terrified. For you, for me, for every human on this station. But I'm also, I don't know, proud maybe? We're supposed to represent humanity out here in the galaxy. Maybe treating people with basic decency is exactly what we should be representing. They sat in companionable silence for a while, the hum of the station's systems filling the space between words. Finally, Derek stood up and stretched. Just promise me you'll be careful. Drax hasn't made a move yet, but men like him don't forget. They just wait for the right moment. I'll be careful. But Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that Derek was right. That somewhere in the shadows of Station Prometheus, something was being planned. That the silence from Drax and his friends wasn't peace, but the quiet before a storm. He pushed the worry aside and got back to work. 3 more workers were waiting to talk to him about regulation violations, and he'd promised to help them before his shift ended. The storm would come when it came. Until then, Tyler would keep doing what he could. Keep treating people like they mattered. Keep being the kind of human his parents had raised him to be. Even if it meant standing in the path of something dangerous. Especially then. Meanwhile, in Section C7, Drax was having a very different conversation. His 2 companions sat across from him in the break room, and between them was a data pad displaying maintenance schedules and safety protocols. The Villani works the secondary recycling station, Drax said, his voice low and controlled. Tomorrow at 0600 hours, there's going to be a containment breach. System malfunction. These things happen in waste processing. Dangerous job. And the human? One of his companions asked. Drax smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. The human will learn what happens when you interfere with the natural order. He'll learn that saving her once means nothing if he can't save her twice. And when he fails, when she dies despite his heroic interference, he'll understand how powerless he really is. The 3 Korthans began planning the details. Careful, methodical, leaving no trace that would show up in official investigations. Just another tragic accident in the dangerous lower levels of Station Prometheus. Just the way things worked when you forgot your place. The alarm started screaming at 0603 hours, 3 minutes later than Drax had planned. Tyler was in Engineering Bay 7, 2 sections away, finishing up a night shift report when the sound cut through the normal station hum like a knife. It wasn't the general alarm, the one that meant hull breach or fire. This was specific, localized. The kind that meant something bad was happening somewhere, but not bad enough to evacuate the whole station. His datapad lit up automatically, displaying the emergency. Containment breach, Section C7, waste recycling. Hazardous material exposure risk. Emergency teams dispatched. Section C7. Kira's section. Tyler's blood went cold. He was moving before his brain caught up, dropping his datapad on the workstation and running for the corridor. Behind him, he heard Derek shouting something, but the words didn't register. All Tyler could think about was Kira, her crystalline skin that had finally started healing, working in a section where something had just gone catastrophically wrong. The corridors blurred past him. Other workers pressed against the walls as he ran, some shouting at him to slow down, others just staring. Tyler's lungs burned and his legs ached, but he pushed harder. Section C7 was nearly half a mile away through the station's twisting corridors, and every second mattered. He rounded the final corner and saw the emergency lights flashing red above the section entrance. 2 station workers in protective gear were setting up a barrier, the kind that meant nobody was supposed to go in. Tyler didn't slow down. Hey, stop. Section's closed, one of them shouted. Tyler ducked under their reaching arms and hit the emergency door release. The door slid open with a hiss and he was through before they could grab him. Behind him, he heard them yelling into their communicators, but he was already inside. The section was a nightmare of flashing lights and blaring alarms. Tyler's eyes stung from something in the air, some chemical smell that his nose didn't recognize but his body definitely didn't like. Through the haze, he could see the source of the breach. A massive pipe overhead, one of the main waste containment lines, had ruptured. Toxic material was spraying out under pressure, a dark liquid that steamed when it hit the air. And directly below it, frozen in terror, was Kira. She stood at her workstation like a statue, her blue crystalline skin already darkening from whatever was in the air. Her eyes were wide, locked on the spray of toxic waste that was arcing toward her. She couldn't move. Fear had locked every muscle in her body. Tyler didn't think. Thinking would have reminded him that he wasn't wearing protective gear, that he had no training for hazardous material situations, that running toward danger instead of away from it violated every survival instinct humans had evolved over millions of years. Thinking would have made him hesitate. "Kira. Move," he screamed. She didn't. Couldn't. The spray intensified. In seconds it would hit her directly. Whatever that liquid was, Tyler's instincts screamed that it would kill her. Dissolve her crystalline skin, eat through her body, end her life in a way that was painful and horrible. Tyler ran straight toward her. He crossed the distance in 5 seconds that felt like 5 hours. His work suit, standard issue for human engineers, wasn't designed for this. It was meant to protect against electrical shorts and minor chemical splashes, not industrial waste containment breaches. But it was better than Kira's thin recycling uniform. It was better than nothing. He grabbed her around the waist and spun, putting his back between her and the spray. His momentum carried them both toward an equipment barrier, a thick metal cabinet that might offer protection. They hit the floor hard behind it just as the main discharge began. Tyler felt the toxic waste hit his back like liquid fire. Even through the suit, the heat was immediate and intense. The material of his suit sizzled and smoked, the outer layer dissolving on contact. The liquid burned through to his skin and Tyler bit down on a scream. His back felt like someone had laid hot coals across it and then poured acid on top. But he kept his arms around Kira, kept her pressed against the floor behind the barrier, kept his body between her and the spray. She was shaking violently, her face pressed against his chest, her hands clutching his shirt like he was the only solid thing in a collapsing world. The spray lasted 30 seconds. The longest 30 seconds of Tyler's life. He could feel his suit disintegrating, could smell his own skin burning, could taste blood in his mouth from biting his lip to keep from screaming. But he didn't move. Didn't let go. If he moved, the spray would hit Kira and everything would be for nothing. Finally, the pressure dropped. The spray reduced to a trickle, then stopped. Emergency systems kicked in, sealing the breach with foam that hardened on contact. The alarms cut off, leaving behind a ringing silence that was almost worse. Tyler sagged against the cabinet, his back a sheet of pain that made it hard to think. Kira pulled back slightly, looking up at him with those crystalline eyes that were now streaming tears. Tyler, you are hurt." "I'm okay," he managed, though that was definitely a lie. "Are you okay? Did any of it get on you?" "No. You protected me." Her voice broke. "Why did you protect me?" Before Tyler could answer, emergency teams swarmed into the section. They had proper gear, sealed suits and breathing apparatus and medical equipment. They pulled Tyler and Kira apart, checking them both for contamination. A medic peeled what was left of Tyler's suit away from his back, and the pain spiked so high that Tyler's vision went white at the edges. Chemical burns, second degree, covering approximately 30% of his back. The medic reported into his comm, "Subject requires immediate medical attention. Prep a treatment bay." They loaded Tyler onto a stretcher. As they carried him out of the section, he caught glimpses of station security arriving, already scanning the equipment with their instruments. One of them was documenting the ruptured pipe, and even through the pain Tyler noticed something. The rupture wasn't clean. It wasn't a simple equipment failure. There were marks on the pipe, tool marks, where someone had deliberately weakened it. Sabotage. Drax had tried to kill Kira. And Tyler had just gotten in the way. The next 3 days were a blur of pain medication and medical treatments. The burns on Tyler's back were serious but not life-threatening, the doctors told him. His suit had protected him from the worst of it. He'd have scars, they said, but he'd heal. They seemed impressed that he'd survived at all, given what he'd been exposed to. Kira never left. She sat beside his medical bay constantly, sometimes talking, sometimes just sitting in silence. She told him that station security had reviewed the surveillance footage. The sabotage was obvious once someone actually looked. Drax's genetic markers were all over the equipment he'd tampered with. All 3 Korthans had been arrested within hours. "They said Drax will be removed from the station," Kira told him on the second day. "Not for trying to kill me. That would not be enough. But because his sabotage endangered station infrastructure. Because it could have spread to other sections. Because it threatened everyone, not just me." Tyler shifted in the bed, trying to find a position that didn't hurt. "I'm sorry, they only care because it affected other people. I am not. I do not care why he is gone, only that he is." Kira touched his hand gently, carefully, like she was afraid he might break. "My people have stories. Old legends from before we joined the station program. Stories about protectors from the stars who valued all life equally, who saw people instead of castes, who would stand between the weak and danger without thought of reward." "Kira? I never believed those stories. I thought they were myths, fantasies told to make us feel better about our place in the universe. But you are real, Tyler. Humans are real. You gave me water when I was dying of thirst, and now you have given me your own body as a shield. You nearly died for me. Why? Tyler thought about his answer for a long time. Finally he said, because someone has to. Because if everyone just keeps walking past suffering, nothing ever changes. Because you mattered, Kira. You matter. And that should be reason enough. On the third day Derek visited. He pulled up a chair and sat down with a heavy sigh. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the stupidest, Derek said. Can't it be both? Probably is. Derek smiled, but it faded quickly. Tyler, you need to know something. Word of what you did has spread through the entire station. Every level, every species. And it's caused ripples. What kind of ripples? Lower caste workers are standing up for themselves. Citing regulations. Demanding proper treatment. Some of the higher caste species are pushing back, but others are actually listening. Station administration is scrambling to figure out what to do. They can't ignore it anymore when workers are organizing and using the rules against them. Is that bad? I don't know yet. But here's what I do know. Humans are getting a reputation. Not as the strongest species or the smartest or the most advanced. As the species that treats others with dignity. As the ones who'll stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. As protectors. That's a lot of pressure. Yeah. But maybe it's who we need to be out here. Maybe that's humanity's role in the galactic community. Derek stood up and headed for the door, then paused. Your dad would be proud of you, by the way. Whatever he taught you about not walking past suffering, it stuck. After Derek left, Kira returned. She was carrying something wrapped in cloth, cradling it carefully. I made this for you. In my culture, we give these to our greatest protectors. She unwrapped the cloth to reveal a sculpture, small enough to fit in Tyler's palm. It was made from her own shed skin, crystalline pieces carefully shaped and fitted together into the form of a star. It caught the medical bay's lights and threw rainbow patterns across the white walls. It's beautiful, Tyler said, his voice rough with emotion. You saved more than my life, Kira said. You saved my belief that the universe can be kind. That there are beings who see suffering and choose compassion. That dignity is not earned through strength but inherent in existence itself. You showed the entire station what humanity means. Tyler held the crystal star carefully, feeling its weight. He thought about everything that had happened. The fear, the pain, the burns that would leave scars on his back for the rest of his life. And he thought about Kira, alive and whole and standing with her head high for the first time since he'd met her. I just shared my water, he said quietly. No, Kira replied. You shared your humanity. And that changed everything. Retriclog can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.